Hope you're all having a beautiful Tuesday. We're just gonna give it a minute for people to join and settle in. Oh, hey Adele. Hey guys, let me know where you're from. Would love to say hello. Hey Jim Kelly. Hey guys. It is Tuesday. Take a deep breath. If you're having one of those weeks, just want to remind you, shitty days happen, shitty weeks happen, and I am here with you. We're just waiting for Destiny, who's right here, and she is an incredible therapist, and we're also in the same depth psychology program at Pacifica, and I thought it would be amazing to connect and talk a little bit about shadow work and the psyche and the unconscious and all that good stuff. Hey, Destiny.
Hey.
Oh my God, awkward. Hey guys. So good to see you. How are you?
Good to see you too. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can totally hear you. Oh, hey, Marissa. We have a couple of Ignite peeps in the audience here, and I heard it's snowing in some parts of the country, so I hope you guys are staying warm. I just got back to LA on Saturday, and I have to tell you the difference between San Francisco and LA is a lot. It is so cold up there. I was not ready for that. So anyway, welcome. So I would love if you could just tell, people who you are, what you do, and then we can get into like shadow work and all that good stuff. And guys, if you're watching at any point, if you have questions about diving into your inner world, the unconscious mind, archetypes, healing from trauma, witchcraft, we're all about it. Like we do everything in this little like talk today. So anything like that, rituals, or shadow work, which has been coming up so much on social media, and I thought it was like really important that we talk about like what real shadow work is versus like what this kind of pop culture version of shadow work is, that I think is getting really confused. But first, tell us all about you.
All right. Well, hi, everyone. So my name is Destiny. I am primarily an associate marriage and family therapist. I'm also a PhD student at the same school Gabby goes to, but a different program. So in the depth psychology, integrative therapy, and healing program at Pacifica Graduate Institute.
I feel like giving them cred. They should give us some tuition off.
They should. I primarily work with trauma survivors, particularly a lot of child trauma survivors or adult child trauma survivors. And I started actually kind of like working at a rape crisis center and a domestic violence shelter. So I did a lot of crisis work, and I was also a batterers facilitator and worked with both men and women who were on probation for domestic violence for being battering. And I actually really like doing that work. And if we're going to talk about the shadow, those are a lot of people you got to do shadow work. Right now, though, I do work at a site over in Orange County, and I do a lot of Jungian kind of depth work with a lot of my trauma survivors. So a lot of inner child work, a lot of shadow work, active imagination, sand tray. I sometimes integrate my tarot cards into sessions. I've played drums with clients. Yes, and I'm also EMDR trained as well. And I take more of a depth psychological approach to EMDR. So I don't just follow the protocol, I guess. I kind of really take where my clients lead me. And one time one of my clients kind of started like channeling their higher self or like a spirit guide, and we're like, do you want to just go for it? And we're like, sure. We just went for it. But yeah, I primarily work through that kind of depth trauma focused lens.
Amazing. I love that. And I really love bringing on people and working with people who have a holistic approach, who maybe come from like a very Western clinical. There is so much more when it comes to healing. I think we lost her. Oh shit. Okay. Well, I'll just take a minute to read through comments while she reconnects. Oh, I am Coach Carmen. So happy to connect. I'm interested in trauma healing. Amazing. What are you interested in specifically? And I'll start to go through some of these questions so that way we can keep going, and she'll be back, I'm sure. Oh, there she is. And don't forget, guys, drop your questions. We already have a bunch in the question box, and we're going to pop that up and answer all of them when she gets back. Oh, hey! No worries. So I was just saying we have a bunch of questions already. But before we like jump in, I was just saying that I really love how a lot of us therapists have like gone through the traditional route, and then we're like, wait, hold on, like I really want to do tarot, I want to learn energy work, or I want to do yoga or meditation, or understand like different modalities and kind of put together a really wonderful, holistic, full mind, body, spirit approach to healing. And I think so much of what we see today is like here, right? It's either like we're going to think about it, talk about it, journal about it, process it, or we're going to feel the somatics of it, which all of it is really helpful and I use all the time. But there's also this aspect of like, guys, your unconscious is like a crazy place. And unless we really understand like that unconscious mind and how it really sees things in symbolism and metaphor and storytelling, and understanding that like that the narratives we create in our minds and the things that we deal with on a daily basis are stories and narratives, and it involves understanding a level of, you know, have a level of understanding of your unconscious, kind of like how that you know, the underworld, like we like to call it, really operates, because there's so much strength in that.
Yes. And so another thing too is I've been identifying as a witch since I was like 13, but I was raised in a very kind of holistic religious home. Like my mom was like, let's draw oracle cards and fairies, and my dad, let's talk about aliens. So I was raised in that home, and I've been on this journey my whole life. And when I actually started my master's program in counseling, I kind of was like, I'm going to stay traditional. I'm not going to do my woohoo stuff, and was planning on going to a PhD program in like Texas. And then there were like, I always say the universe was like, nope, and 300 dropped kicked me, like the movie, into Pacifica, and really having me embrace those, I guess, magical sides of me. And the unconscious psyche, our guides love to speak to us through images. And images doesn't necessarily mean like an actual image, but it can be through music, poetry, a body sensation. And how allowing my like spiritual background, because you know, I was taught by different spiritual shamanic teachers and other witches, and approaching my clients through that lens has opened up a completely new avenue that sometimes traditional therapy doesn't allow. I had a client yesterday who was telling me about this like darkness in her, and it was like a separate entity. And sometimes traditional therapists have put her on medication. And I was like, oh, why don't we try like a mixture of trauma work while I do some cleansing, and and I have great supervisors say like compassionate depossession, and kind of working through that. And I think not having them so separate, but really kind of integrating, which is what healing was done so long ago. But then, you know, a lot of Western and the Western medical model has really separated that. And that's soul work, and that's unconscious work, and that embraces the shadow work. Yeah.
I love that. It's soul work. That's like, that hits home. I think one of the things that I literally died over when I read Freud and Man's Soul at Pacifica was, by the way, Freud's whole concept of psychology was twisted. And actually, like this whole time, the mind that we've used in Western psychology to kind of quantify the psyche and make it like very medically and like understand it.
Yeah.
The word in Austrian that he used in all of his writing was the soul. And then when it was translated into English, it was changed from soul to mind. And then all of a sudden, we're taken out of the soul experience. And all of a sudden we're all here, and all of a sudden the focus is here, when really there's so much more depth stuff happening that if we allow ourselves to get a little weird or woo-woo or whatever, what that really is allowing yourself to explore the unexplored parts of yourself in a way that may be new or different, but actually is a way that is a good way to communicate with your soul, the imagery and all of that.
Dr. Downing's class, right?
Yeah. Dr. That is the shit.
She's like, oh, the id, ego, and super ego doesn't exist. What he called it was what, like you, I, and them.
Yeah.
And there's a whole, my first degree is in history, so of course I like the history of it, and there's a whole historical reason about why that is. But yes, you know, Freud thought anyone could be a psychoanalysis. So he really wanted it to be like it is soul work. And yeah, there's a lot with him and Jung, but I think these new depth psychologists I'm seeing, especially in my cohort, they're like really embracing social justice and incorporating and bringing back old ways of healing that have been appropriated or taken away.
Yeah, this reclaiming of indigenous and spiritual practices that for so long have been commodified, and inviting that as also a way of working through mental health, working through connecting with spirit and ancestors, and getting into the psyche as well, doing rituals that stem from your bloodline. Totally seeing that in my cohort too. It's really cool.
Yeah, and you know, speaking, you know, because we hold our ancestral trauma in our bodies now. I'm Mexican and white, so I hold colonizer and colonized in my body, and that fight and that struggle. I also I'm from a family of perpetrators and victims, and I hold that wound in my body as well. But not only that, but through my, you know, mediumship work that I've done on the side, I do have this kind of belief that, you know, let's say someone in your family has passed away through addiction, and you're currently seeking help for addiction. I believe that family member can sit with you in your therapy session and get the healing they couldn't get in this life, right? So you're healing. I love that healing just exists outside of time, and you're moving, you know, through the past and the present and the future, and healing, you know, your old family, as well as preparing a new way for the new family. And that's what I really love about therapy. And, you know, bringing in like the depth psychology work is that what I really love about depth, which soul work, soul is downward, it's the body, it's more of the feminine, it's the earth. And what it allows is it allows for confusion, for sickness, for illness, for brokenness. It's not someone coming to see me and saying, you know, I'm broken, fix me. They may come in and I'm over here and I'm kind of saying, well, what's wrong with the brokenness and how can we work on this together? And our symptomology too, which, you know, CPT, I'm not hating on it. It's really, I was a crisis counselor. I did CBT work. I needed to get my clients, I saw them for 10 free sessions. Sometimes they just needed to get through the day. I'm not going to do...
CBT, guys, for those of you who don't know, is cognitive behavioral therapy. So it's very much like behavior-based, like, okay,
behavioral-based
problem, and you do, like, you're going to do these, like, patterns of behavior. It's very, like, it takes away completely the soul work. Although it's not bad, it's really great for some particular situations. It does... yeah, anyway, I'll let you speak on it, but I just wanted to specify what that
here's the thing. Yeah, when I'm doing crisis work, or I have a client who, you know, they come in wanting to do inner child work or shadow work, and they have like none of the basic, like they don't know how to do breathing exercises. They don't really have a self-care kind of like, okay, what can we do to resource? They don't have the resourcing yet. I'm not going to start them with shadow work. We're going to do basic kind of resourcing first. We're going to do more of the CBD kind of, okay, let's do 5 deep breaths, and how do we, you know, recognizing our triggers and when we're having anxiety, and then we can get into the shadow work, because when we're doing inner child work or shadow work, we're opening doors. And sometimes, unfortunately, what happens is, and you were saying with social media, is that
I'm just going to pop up, by the way, and just this, because this is also part of the question that Coach Carmen was asking, how to heal the inner child. So I'll just leave.
Yeah, I'll totally come into that. And I love doing inner child work. But we open doors when we do inner child to things that maybe you're not prepared for or not really understanding. And with social media, a lot of times they're saying like, let's do shadow work. I'm a big believer you shouldn't really attempt shadow work without a guide. Because it is.
If I see a course that someone's doing, like a do-it-yourself shadow work course, or like hey, like we're doing 1 week of shadow work as a part of this program, like run, because that shit cannot be done in a week, and you are going to open up some stuff, and it's a practitioner who probably doesn't know what they're doing. Ask them where they were trained, because this real shadow work is tough. It opens up deep wounds.
Mm-hmm.
It requires so much gentleness and a guide who really understands how to get you out of that once you've completed the journey. But if you're just going into something and someone's like, part of this 6-week program is 1 week of shadow work, run, because that is not real shadow work, or it's going to really, really fucking hurt you. And it's
and I've had clients who've done both inner child work and shadow work on their own, and one who did inner child work, like the door slammed open. They had no resources to close it back, and they were like breaking down fetal position. And they came into therapy, and I was like, okay, well, let's slow down. And they didn't really even have basic breath work. And so it's like you need to resource for, and you need a guide. That's what a depth psychologist or a shadow work, someone who's really trained is. We're guides. If you know the mythology, like Hermes, which I equate myself to, is we go with you into the underworld. We're walking with you. We're not going to do the hard work. Like, we're not going to carry you in the underworld, but we're guiding you. We're holding the light for you. And then we're the one beckoning you back out. And we help do the containment piece for that. And sometimes doing the inner child work or the shadow work, we have to step into roles that you didn't get. So when I'm doing inner child work, and I still answer this question, I use a lot of active imagination. And so a lot of the times someone is getting angry. Let's say something happens and they're really angry. And I'll start, okay, well, where is that anger in your body? How old is that anger? Oh, it's 5. What would a 5-year-old want to do when they're angry? Let's leave logical parent and adult away. We're going to put them away. And what is the child? And I've had clients be like, I don't want to get into
Sometimes it's right there. You don't have
and that's it. And I have to step into either the role of like a really compassionate, loving parent, or the strict parent that's not going to let their child put the fork in the electrical socket, right? So, and you need someone to pull you out of that. And I always do at the end of sessions that I say, here's our container, here's our box. We're going to put it in here. I'm going to keep it safe for you. It's with me. I'm going to keep it here so you can go about your day. I guess I'm Italian. I talk with my hands.
No, I didn't even see your hands. I was talking to my hands, not even seeing yours. Oh my God, that's so funny.
And we keep it in, and when we're ready, we open it back up. And I have clients that do that, right? Or we have a light switch or something like that. And what I really love about inner child work is you get to play. Play, right? It's one of my first posts was like, it was the child you that was hurt, so it's the child you that needs to heal. Let's be talking, right? That's not going to work. If your language you didn't develop language as much when you were like 3 or 5 or in the womb or when you're a baby. So how is language going to help now? Let's do Santre. Let's do art. That's where the tarot comes in really well, because it's images. Let's do somatic work. Let's dance. I've danced with clients.
I love dancing so much.
And yes, and that's the powerful, and that's the healing. And then sometimes we talk to them, right? It's like I'm having the child, and we'll imagine them really being in the room with us. And I have to go into my child therapy voice and say like, oh, wow, that's really sad. I'm really sorry that happened for you. What do you need from me? Or what do you need? And they'll hug themselves, or we get the weighted blanket. And I sometimes have to teach my clients, how would you talk to a child, especially those who don't have children themselves? How would you talk to a child? And you're not approaching, if a child is tantruming or you're seeing a child crying, you're not going to scream at it to stop. Some parents do, and they're usually overwhelmed themselves and need containment. But you usually come with them with compassion. Why wouldn't you do the same for yourself? And it's really that self-compassionate piece. Even with the shadow work, the shadow is the darker side to ourselves. It's parts that we're really scared to meet. I have clients, and even myself, that are like really terrified of our shadow because of what it can do. It's like, oh, wow, our shadows can hurt other people, and I don't want to let that out. And we need to bring that shadow in, and it's really scary, right? This is a part of some people, and some of batterers that can hurt and maybe has hurt other people. And that's when you need a guide, because the shadow isn't, we're going to embrace the shadow and be best friends with the shadow. You might not be best friends with the shadow. Then it's learning, okay, how can I contain the shadow in a healthy manner, so I can go about my life? And
I love that. I fucking love that, because I think there's such a misconception of like, it all has to be integrated and it all has to feel good. And like, that is again such a, corporatization and of wellness, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like
Yes.
the end goal isn't like pay all this money so you feel good all the time. It's like, how do we also recognize that it's okay for things not to be good, and just to learn how to manage it and to get on with your life in a way that you can find real happiness.
Yes, and I am not a big fan of the sunshine rainbow social media therapist. I'm actually a pretty blunt therapist sometimes. And because, you know, in order to reach enlightenment or to reach that light, you got to get through the dark and you got to go through the shadow. And Jungians call it like the swampland of the soul.
The swampland of the soul, guys. Who's been there? Raise your hand.
Yes, multiple times.
I visit on a regular basis. It's my only vacation spot in
yes. And I think Brene Brown had a video too, where she's like, you know, we're going to put our galoshes on. We're not going to build a house in the swampland of the soul. We're going to walk through it. So you got to traverse it. You got to go into the underworld. And if we're bringing in like archetype message and the hero's journey, the hero starts at home and then kind of goes all the way down. And then there is an underworld piece. And then there's the leaving the underworld. And the underworld piece is actually where the hero learns the most important lessons and does the most healing. So we can't just start and then try to pass it and go here. Marianne Winman said some of our most best selves may come from the shadow. So we need to go down there, but it's terrifying as hell. The first time I went through the shadow, I was alone. I never left my bed. It was really bad. And I don't even know how I got out of it. And now I have I work with my own depth psychologist, another Pacific graduate, but
we all have our own coaches and psychologists and therapists. Like, do not think we're sitting here doing our own shadow work. Like, that's not happening.
And that's why you need the guide, because you can get stuck. You can get stuck in the shadow, or it could be so scary that you create a wound and you don't even want to meet it anymore. More trauma. And so when you're really wanting to do like the deep, so some shadow work, like, you know, maybe you have like a fear that's not huge, that you feel like maybe you can do it on your own. But if you really want to do real hardcore shadow work, you need to find someone to help guide you through it. Someone who at least, you know, they may not have the 𝗰𝗶𝘃𝗹 at the end, but there are people who are Jungian based healers that maybe don't have, again, the 𝗰𝗶𝘃. I know a few, but they're very well, they know the shadow. They know how to work the shadow.
How to work without being a depth psychologist, for sure. Yeah. And I would just ask whoever you're going to be working with, like what their experience doing shadow work is, not just with themselves. Like, you want to know that they've done it themselves, but you also want to understand, where did you learn this stuff from, and how, you know, how experienced are you in this. So I just want to go over these comments really quick. It was blowing up. You guys are really enjoying this. I'm so glad this is helpful. We're going to get to as many questions as we possibly can. Oh, Traveling Chanting Yogi said, I love the soul work integration topic. And so you knew that too. She knew the Freud fact about the soul. That's awesome. Or he, I don't know who that is. Rose Light Energies, digging it. Vibes Being Cute said, have you heard of family constellations?
Yes, I have.
And what are your thoughts?
I'm not too familiar with it. I've heard of it. I know it works really well. People have told me I should be trained in it, but I'm currently actually working on my dream tending certificate and other training, so I'm going to take a break. But that is something I've heard about it.
It's incredible. Okay,
I like learning.
So family constellations, when we know more about that, we'll come back and do another live. Coach Carmen, thank you for the love. Yendina Yeli said, I love that, healing generations by doing the work. Chronically Healed mentioned TFCBT. Yeah, I'm TFCBT certified, so that's really helpful. It's called trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, and that's really, really wonderful for kids. So if you're looking to kind of do any trauma work with children, that's a great certification to have.
Yeah, and heads up, you do approach depth psychology a lot differently with children than you would. Actually, they actually do it a lot better than adults, because they're so better. They're like, you know, I can do active imagination with them like that. And adults, we have to be like, that's embarrassing. I'm like, why is it embarrassing? But But
that wounded
yeah.
child, like we're also wounded our inner children, I think, in some way. It's because we really shut down that imagination, that play, that openness and curiosity and what this kind of love, endless love and curiosity that comes from children until things happen that really like kills that light. And I think that for us, you know, after a long period of time, after conditioning, becoming adults, it's like we're so conditioned to feel uncomfortable touching that part of ourselves and really letting go and having fun. So if it's uncomfortable for you to like let go, play, and just sit and visualize and imagine like what the future looks like, or whatever, like in a play world, then you might
reflecting on what's going on with that uncomfortableness. Were you punished or not told to play or told to grow up too soon? So again, I lean towards the uncomfortableness.
Totally. Coach Carmen asked, are there any inner child tools, healing tools for people with low resources?
I would start out really just kind of engaging that play and creativity. So getting like a coloring book or paint, and kind of just starting with that. But like doing more trauma-focused CBT or attachment-based things when you don't have resourcing is a good place to start. Working with a lot of my clients when I do inner child work, again, I really do start with more of like the mindfulness, the breathing, meditation, basic. And then while that's happening, it's not that I put aside the child work. Sometimes the inner child comes up while we're doing that work. And then we'll engage and I'll see how much they can handle. And if we need to step back, and again, I'm sometimes teaching them how to talk to a child. Because they'll go like, well, I had one that wrote a whole letter about how their child self was stupid and an idiot. And I said, would you tell that to another 5-year-old? Oh, no way. And I'm like, so why are you telling it to yourself? So I have to kind of, let's take a step back, and how would you approach a child? So I really working with, you know, a therapist or a coach that kind of focuses on inner child work, but, you know, doing the play, going outside, dancing, painting, coloring book, anything, you know, like when you're at the beach or outside, hug a tree or talk to the tree. I had one client, she had a child and they talked to fairies together. So it's really engaging the active imagination piece. And allowing
I actually love talking to my houseplants. There's research behind this though, and
there is.
Water them. I literally like, oh, you're so beautiful. Like, look at you. You have a new leaf. You're doing so good. I love this. Your color is great. Sometimes I'll put on classical music for them too.
Now I would ask you. I would ask you to ask your, like, this is Hillman and active imagination. When you're talking to your plants, ask them, what lessons do you have for me today? And see what comes up. And plants like, well, why are you can't force me to grow. I'll grow when I'm ready. That's a big plant medicine right there. That I'll grow when I have my sun and my nutrients, and I will grow as fast as I am meant to grow, and as slow as I am meant to grow.
I love that. Just having like conversations with your psyche. Like that should be the name of like a talk show. Conversations with my psyche. A one-woman talk show. Oh my God. Oh, hey, Amber. Amber's here. Yeah, Amber, you need to start talking to your plants, girl. I'm telling you, it's a game changer. And traveling chanting yogi said something before. Oh yeah. So Amber said, I think depth psychology is the future of our field, and traveling chanting yogi agrees. I totally agree. Amazing. So let's see. Let's answer like a couple more questions before we head off. Let's see. How do you begin healing from colon? Yeah, go ahead.
How do you begin healing from? What was that? How I begin healing from?
Colonization.
Ooh, you know what's her name? I'll have to like send you so you can share with everyone. Healing from colonization. So I will say, you know, again, I look white, so I do experience white privilege. So my healing with that is a lot different than, say, someone who does experience, you know, racism and things like that. And it's a lot. I love my grandmother's hands.
Yes.
And I believe incredible book. And I'm believed to approach healing from colonization, we need to do trauma work. We need to do somatic work. We talked about the theories. Again, my first degree is in history. I know all the theories of you know, racism in the country. I've heard them all. Well, maybe not all of them, but I've heard a lot of them. And we can continue to stay up here in colonization. Like, this is what we should do, but we need to start coming back into our body and back into doing the trauma work. And when I'm going to speak from, you know, the white privilege lens, because that's where I come from, that when I'm, you know, someone approaches me and I see something on social media about anti-racist work and I get an uncomfortable feeling, I need to sit with that feeling and reflect on it.
Yeah.
And see where that's coming from.
Yeah.
And that's where, you know, I don't specialize in this. I want to highlight that I'm still learning how to heal from it. I'm still learning how to approach my clients with this work.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of great BIPOC, you know, Black, Indigenous, people of color therapists and healers out there that they talk about this. I can't, it starts with an R.
Rachel Ricketts? No, she does business. Rachel Ricketts, I'm thinking, but no, I think I might be.
No, it's Dr. I think Rosella. She posts all the time on colonization and healing.
Okay, I have a couple of people that I can't think of right off the bat, but I will share my stories as well, who do amazing work on this. And actually, my good friend Jess, who's going to be coming in and guest coaching for our next group, Dr. Jess Moy, she actually specializes in coaching BIPOC women in healing from, you know, conversation, intergenerational trauma. Oh, Dr. Rosales Mesa.
Yes, thank you. That's it. Yeah, she's amazing. Yes, she's amazing. Yeah, and a really good book I love is The Racial Complex.
Oh my God, a few people got it. Sorry, I have to say, that's awesome. Sorry.
Yes. I love when you blank. Like, I just read stuff from her today and I just blanked. But really good for like a depth psychological approach. If you go on my resources on my profile, I have some Jungian depth psychology approach books to race and culture. But my favorite is The Racial Complex by Dr. Fanny Brewster, who's like one of my favorite professors at school. And she's one of the only Black Jungian analysis in like the world. There's only, I think, around like 8.
We're so lucky to learn from her.
Yeah. So check out those books because they approach it a bit differently than just like the if a lot of the times we hear about like the sociology or the government or the historical, like how do we treat it, but I think we as therapists are in like the perfect place to really heal. That we need, that's why I think we need to do the social justice work. We can't just sit and hide in our offices. We need to go out there because we're healers and we need to heal the collective soul along with our individual soul. We need to tend to the collective shadow along with the individual shadow.
I'm with you 1,000,000%. It really, I won't get into it now. Another conversation.
Another conversation.
My ears. When I see therapists not speaking up on their platforms about social justice, about equality, about healing intergenerational trauma, about changing systems. I'm like, yo, this is part of the Hippocratic Oath. Like, this is part of our ethical duty. Like, if you're worried about losing followers because you're not going to speak up about healing the collective shadow, then don't be a fucking therapist. Sorry. Like, that's just, or don't be an Instagram. Don't have a platform. Don't do it. Because it's your fucking responsibility. Sorry, I got like really fired up about it because I get it's uncomfortable. I get it's like people don't feel comfortable in taking a stand. They're afraid of what that means. But then, bro, you cannot be out there healing people. Like, sorry, like that's not okay. Like, that's not ethical. Yeah.
Yes, and someone just said and someone just said we need to embody it. Yes, we need to embody it. We need to approach it thematically. When you're feeling uncomfortable, your shadow is getting hit. Yo, that's that collective shadow that's being hit, right? Because we don't want to sit there and examine when we were maybe racist or homophobic or sexist, and we got to examine it and we got to own it and we got to really authentically apologize and transform those feelings. Alchemy, right? Transform the shame and guilt around that into positive, active energy. So yes, and someone did ask a question about are there steps? I don't remember who. I don't know if it was steps to doing inner child work or shadow work. Here's the thing with
getting into the underworld and doing that stuff.
Us depth psychologists are very into steps.
Just go there and walk into the door. No.
So the underworld it's not a real place. It's a place we can imagine it. A lot of people who kind of draw out their version of the underworld kind of have it similar. I do want to be very clear that in shamanic work, there's something called the lower world that is different than the underworld. The underworld is an archetypal mythology of kind of what the unconscious or the shadow would be. And unfortunately, there aren't any steps. That would be amazing if there were steps.
That would be incredible.
Because step psychology, remember, we embrace the confusion.
Yeah.
So spirit, when we, you know, 𝗁𝗵𝗃𝗀 wrote about peaks and veils and talks about the difference between spirit and soul. It's a whole nother conversation. But spirit likes, and the masculine likes steps. Masculine energy likes steps. And I'm not talking about gender, I'm talking about energy. So masculine loves steps and it likes order. Soul work, depth work, and underworld work, it's like, nope, we're going to go confusion. So some days we're really deep in the underworld and we can work it and we can get there really easily. And sometimes your defenses are way too high and we're just doing breathing or sound bowl healing or just talking about the show we watched on TV that day. And really, you start with what you can do now. I will say one of the first things I do with my clients is that we find some sort of ally. So I do dream tending, and when I work with nightmares, we find an ally to come with us, whether that be a power animal, or I had one client had Captain Marvel for hers.
Oh, I love it. I love that.
Yes. So, or a person. Some people have like a crystal, they'll hold their crystals. So you find an ally that's, you know, outside of me that you can bring with you or hold on to into the underworld with you. That I think would be one of the first steps I would do before we even go, you know, to the underworld, and my hands doing the down. We find allies. We find who can help one. You can have a bunch, like all around you. Sometimes I'll do that. We'll activate imagination. Sometimes we will do shamanic journeying if they want. We'll draw it out or we'll paint it. And then another at the end step when I'm closing it, I always do some sort of mindful movement exercise, tree pose, dancing, something to bring you out and bring you back. I sometimes will walk out with them and we'll walk outside. So I think that first, having that ally and then making sure you can do a present mindful movement activity at the end. Those are like the only steps. The middle part is just all over the place.
The middle part is a hot mess, and when you're really exploring, it's just kind of like I like the imagery, the visualization of being like, okay, we're now gonna go down and there's a door and we're gonna like step through, and it's a little bit hypnosis like, but it's like, okay, like what do we see, what comes up for you now that you're entering this deeper part of the underworld? And for you, it's really whatever comes up. Like it looks like whatever it looks like for you, and what happens and what you encounter in that space, you have a guide you through that.
And when I do, some of them will appear naturally. I did one with my therapist and I had like a black cat. And it was very similar to like Alice in Wonderland's cat in the real world. You know, I go to stories, but sometimes when I do it, because I do somatic basis, if we're talking and all of a sudden this self-hatred starts coming up. I'm a piece of shit. I'm horrible. You know, all of these, there's so many. And okay, where is that in your body? What color is it? What shape? And can we bring it out into this world? And, you know, we've already done kind of a containment before that, you know, we're inviting, or, you know, we're going to invite that dream tending, and dream work's a really good way to do shadow work as well, because psyche speaks to us through dreams. It loves to come up in dreams. So you're inviting kind of these archetypal maybe images or these shadow images to come into the room, and that's the active imagination part. So one of them looked like a green blob thing, and it hid from me. It like hid in a corner in the room when she was telling me, and I had asked, what do I need to like so you feel safe to come see me? So even that shadow part of her was scared of me. So, and that's the word, and I had, and there was still, even though we've worked together for almost a year by that point, there was still a part of her that didn't trust me to contain her. So before we went back to that, I had to keep proving that, okay, what do I need? What do you need from me to show that I contain?
Yeah, she clearly didn't, there was some part of her that consciously or unconsciously still didn't feel quite safe. Yeah, and so it's like going back, touching base, saying, okay, before we go back to this more difficult stuff of really working with the shadow, let's first establish a sense of safety. And that's, again, why you want to work with a really trained facilitator, because we are trained to look for these things, to be able to move and guide you in a way that you're not going to completely fall apart, and that's going to feel empowering, and that's actually going to affect good change for you.
Yeah, and and psychedelics are a good way to meet the shadow too. If you're going to, sorry if I'm traveling chanting yogi, if you're going to do shadow work with psychedelics, also have a guide. Remember that psychedelics, mushroom, and those kind of plant medicines are very powerful. And back when they were being used before, they were done in community. They weren't done alone. They were done in community. So make sure when you're doing that work, it's legal in Oregon now.
Guys, if you're looking for psychedelic shadow work journey, Oregon's gonna be the place to be.
Yeah. And I know people, 𝘁𝗵𝗶𝘀 Senses, she's also Pacifica Graduate Institute, she does that work too, where she doesn't give you anything, but she can help you integrate the messages you've received. But yeah, that's anything that can help bring images. I don't personally do that. I engage in active imagination. And I wanted to say too, make sure when you're having a healer or a therapist to do this work, you have to be comfortable enough to call out your therapist.
Yes.
Or tell your therapist, like, I'm not comfortable, or like I've screwed up and I have to own that and I have to repair it. If you have a therapist or a healer that's not willing to do that, you should know, because this is deep work and you need to do what's right for you. And if you're having a therapist push you too much or not willing to like listen to what your needs are, or take critique, then they're not doing their own shadow work. So
100%.
Yes.
So I just wanted to pull this up because I think it's super relevant as we're kind of like winding down a little bit. If y'all have any last minute questions, we'll probably take one or two more quick ones. And then we could also do another live, because it seems like it was really helpful for you guys. So recommendations of coaches that do shadow work and healing. Hint, hint, Destiny does. So she does that work. I do that work. I do it with my business clients, but I also do it with my leadership clients as well. So I do work with people one-to-one on healing and all of that good stuff and shadow work. And I'm very well trained in that as well. Do we know anybody who's like depth psychology and knows the shadow stuff?
I'm going to start, I'm creating new services where I'm going to do more like these single, so dream tending or just shadow work. So where we'll really focus on the shadow, or we'll do dream, I'll maybe incorporate dream with that, but kind of have more of a focus on that, since I've seen a call for it, and not just do coaching with other things, but we're going to dive deep in this. And I do recommend that you're either been in therapy or currently in therapy for that. I updated my website, and a lot of this will be starting 2021, so keep a lookout. Putting that out.
I didn't know you were doing that. That's so rad.
So really kind of focusing more on we're just going to do they can be one-off sessions, or if there's something that's coming up in shadow, you want to do a healing, or it can be an ongoing, and we can think of a plan to do more ongoing work. But sometimes your shadow gets triggered and you've done maybe work before and you just need someone to help process that shadow work. So I'm thinking about, looking into doing that and more in 2021, but it's all my services are updated on my website, which you can find in my bio, in my profile. Another person who I really like, who does dream tending and as well as oracle counseling work, is Psyche's Dream Witch. She's currently in Pacifica. She's not in my cohort. She's really good. And hopefully once my cohort starts advertising, because they're all being trained in shadow work. Some of them don't usually stay in that realm, some do. But I think you're going to see a lot more people, therapists that do that. I would say finding not anyone, but finding someone at Pacifica Graduate Institute is usually a safer bet, just because we're a Jungian-based school. So they don't really teach shadow work in traditional counseling programs.
Yeah, in terms of traditional psychoanalysis or psychotherapy, no schools teach depth work. Pacifica is a very, very, very unique graduate school that teaches solely depth work, shadow work, inner child healing, mythology, archetypal work.
Yeah, Pacifica certainly has a shadow, and people are starting to make Pacifica tend to that shadow. I'm trying to think of anyone. Psyche's Dream Witch is the one I'm thinking of right now. just because I've talked to her
good.
too.
So you guys talk to Destiny,
Yeah.
go check out her page. She's going to be doing this work specifically. So, and I know you have some spots, so definitely you guys, if you're curious, go check it out. It's like life-changing work to work with someone who really knows what they're doing versus someone who kind of is using shadow work or inner child work as kind of like a, here, buy this quick thing, or here, this like a quick fix. Never trust that. Really understand that this is deep work, and it really is deeply effective, and not effective in that you'll get things done, although it is effective. Affective, meaning your feelings are going to be really triggered. It's going to bring up a lot of things for you. So you want to make sure you're in a safe environment with someone who can really understand what to do for you, so that you don't, like you said, end up in fetal position for a week on the floor with no resources or idea what to do with your life. And you know what I mean? You're having like an existential crisis. So go check out Destiny. I'm so glad we got to have this conversation. If there's anything that, I see some comments from Vibes Being Cute saying that their therapists, they've worked with therapists who got defensive and it was really upsetting and had some bad experience.
Yeah.
And I think just speaking back to what you're saying about calling your therapist out, like, like if you have a therapist or a coach that you're working with that you don't feel seen or heard, or you don't feel like they're really taking good care of you, then definitely bring it up. And if they don't react well to that, that's not a good sign. So I would definitely take a giant step back and assess like how you're feeling and if this still feels aligned for you, and just know you can always go with someone else. You can always like terminate and move on. And you know, and that's okay too. So
yeah, don't ever sacrifice parts of yourself for the comfort of your therapist. That's like my slogan. Never do that. And I do have clients where we're always hearing the old therapy wounds. It's a whole nother topic.
I've heard
yes,
myself, and it's really interesting. Yeah, we'll talk about that another day. But thank you so much for being here, Destiny, and thank you.
Thanks for having me.
And I will drop all of your information, where to find you, in the comments. And y'all, if you guys, you switched therapists, yay! If y'all have any questions moving forward, you can DM her, DM me. We both do shadow work. I do mostly business coaching, but I do reserve a couple of spots for people who want to do inner work and shadow work and healing and trauma work, kind of low key. So if you're like really wanting to do that, hit one of us up. And it was such a pleasure having.
I don't do it low key. That's just what I do.
No, she doesn't do it low key. I do it like low key. She does it like high key.
So if you have any more information or want any more information, again, like I said, for the depth approach to racism or race and culture, check out my resources and my profile. I put a bunch of books on there. And thank you for having me. It was so much fun. I love being able to nerd out.
Oh my God, me too. We're going to do this again very soon.
Yes.
Thank you guys.
Thank
All right,
you.
we'll talk soon.
Bye.